So if you didn't join us last week, here's a quick recap. I dug a bunch of holes. I'm building a permit-free deck. Now I'm rolling the bottoms here to make sure it's covered and gonna stay protected in the ground. Then I put up all my posts. As you can see, there's some clouds in the background. Then I went through and I put up a ledger board as I notched into the posts, making it a very, very strong deck. Next thing I did was I put up the joists. Screwed them in. Love using joist screws rather than nails. I just feel like they're safer. Then I chainsawed off the top, did some concrete, filled in the holes. I was very excited about that, as you can see. Yeah. Made a little slab out there with some posts. Concrete's messy. There it is, drying out. All right, now you're all caught up. I'll put a QR code up if you want to watch the first one. Otherwise, join us on a Rep Mountain Life where we adventure, build, and explore. Thanks for joining. Welcome back again. My name is Jordan, and I hope you enjoyed that suspensefully dramatic intro. Today we're going to be putting on some Trex decking and then welding up some post sleeves to go over that treated post. And here's the worker trailer. These coil nailers are phenomenal. They're not as nice as my cordless one to use, but it's nicer in the fact that they have a whole ream of nails. And then all these are hot dip galvanized nails, so you can use them in pressure treated wood. Oh, hi Emmy. This is my little worker helper. Hi puppy. That's a good girl. You little psycho. That's a good girl. So I'm putting in what's called blocking between all these joists. And what I'm going to do, I'll take these, I've pre-cut a bunch of them, they're the same size, and you just nail them in the middle and it stiffens up the whole deck. What I'm going to do is just go right down the middle. I chalk line down the middle, then get it nice and set in place. Then you just toenail the other one. Oops. So I'm going to put on some joist tape, and the idea is that it actually protects it from water and kind of makes your deck last a little bit longer, especially where all these penetrations are and all the gaps. Just covers it up in between. We're going to go down the line and just do that so I have a little more longevity for the deck. Now I know that watching me put on tape is about as exciting as watching paint dry, which coincidentally you've also done in this deck build, so why are you watching this? Anyways, this is a really important step in whenever you're building a deck. I've taken apart multiple decks where they didn't have this, and man, you can really see the difference. But since this is kind of a boring aspect of things, why don't I go ahead and speed this up for you a little bit here. And while I'm doing that too, if you could please like and subscribe, really does help us out, doesn't cost you anything. We're trying to get 1,000 subscribers here at some point, and would love to have you join us. Thanks. So I'm going to try to do a corner wrap that keeps the fascia intact so that there's not any seams around the outside. I don't know how well this will go, but we will see. So what I'm going to do is set my depth on my saw to the depth of the fascia right there. So now, you can't cut any deeper than that. Now what I'm going to do is cut into this at a 45-degree angle. Once again, have to release my saw here and spin it until it hits 45 degrees. So now in theory, if I cut two 45s, it should make a 90, which should give me the ability to fold this thing over the edge. Put my square on, run this through, and hopefully it doesn't cut all the way through. We'll see. Well, so far so good. Now I just got to do it from the other side. Ooh, that's pretty good actually. Let's see how it does. Man, almost there. Dang it. Well, so much for that brilliant idea. Guess I gotta go a little deeper on my cut. So I changed the depth of the saw, and that seems to have helped a little bit. Alright, I'm getting there, getting somewhere at least. Again, I've not done this before, so this is just an idea. I feel like I've seen somebody do this or somewhere. Alright, ooh, that's pretty clean. The question is, do I need like a heat gun or something? And it broke. Well, third time's a charm maybe. And then run this through, just like you would for if you're notching something out. Ooh, it's not perfect, but it's close. I'm gonna go with that. It's not great, but it's pretty good at least. Get that little wraparound corner. Better than my mitered cuts would be, so I'll take the win. I did put a little bit of vertical bead adhesive caulk behind this. Reason being is it just helps keep that on there a little bit more securely, and you know, that way you're not relying just on fasteners and screws. And there we go, there's the fascia board. The reason I did the vertical adhesive is so that when water does get behind here, it's able to drain out from underneath and it's not getting caught. If I did it horizontal, then it can get caught and stay in there and rot out the wood. So in plywood and OSB, it's assumed the factory edge is square, but with this, cut off the factory edges to get an actual 90 degree, or as close as possible, as close as your saw is to it. So I'm gonna go ahead and make this piece into my corner edge, and the way I'm gonna do that is similar to how I used the circular saw last night for the little piece, but I'm gonna make a pre-made corner piece with this, cut out at a 45 degree angle on both sides, and wrap it so you have a nice perfect corner. The other thing I did see is it's better to use a heat gun like I thought it might be. So I'm gonna try to do that today. So the mistake I made is I flipped it around, and I guess what I need to do is actually bring it in just a little bit, and then it should cut out that piece. This won't matter because you're not going to see it from under the top of the deck. Looks pretty close. Let's see if it falls out. There we go. Now we put some heat on this, make it fall into place. I'll probably put some caulking glue in between there too. So I actually have some epoxy, 5-minute epoxy that I have left over from another job the other day. Mix some of that up and use that. I remembered it was BYOT. Last night is where I saw this. I'd seen a couple people do it on YouTube, but give credit where credit's due. BYOT, I think, was the one that showed me this trick. So do the heat gun, see how it goes. This isn't a good idea. It gets really hot. You don't want to melt it, but you do want to make it just soft enough so that it falls into place. This is not a hair dryer. This is a heat gun. Not going to work with just a hair dryer. Next, take this. There we go. There's my corner. The epoxy, drag it along here. It should hold it in place nicely. I don't have any CA glue or anything, so go with that. And in theory, it should be a 90-degree angle because I just cut 245s, but let's see what that looks like in practice. And in practice, it is not, because I had to cut out that middle spot. Use a square, get it to 90, then lock it in. Okay, there we go. Alright, it hasn't been too long, but I think we can get this corner piece on here. Put a couple vertical strips here. Should work pretty good. And there's that corner. Again, it's not perfect, but it's pretty darn good, and it's not going to separate like a normal miter would because it's got that plastic over top. So that Trex fascia really does give it a pretty cool look on the outside. Gives it a nice slick look. My son comes out here actually in a second and helps me out, gives me an extra hand. I like to be able to teach him some of this stuff, and it really was helpful to have the extra set of hands on this fascia. So if you've ever built a deck or done flooring before, you know that some of the most annoying but also some of the most satisfying parts of it are when you do these little detail cuts around and making notches. So that's what I'm doing right here, is notching around these posts. Got to get that starter piece on to make sure that everything's nice and lined up later on. So I'm doing what's called picture framing a deck, and basically what that means is just what it sounds like. There's an actual frame, like you go around a picture, around the outside of the deck, and it contains all those deck boards on the inside going long ways. It's a really slick way to make everything look like it has sharp, nice, crisp lines. Here's that corner. Probably take this down a little bit. Then we're going to picture frame it in there. So these ends aren't usually perfectly square, so it's good to cut them off and make them square, just so they line up nicely. Now, as you can see, I'm putting these deck boards on, and I'm using hidden fasteners, so it gives kind of a clean line and clean look in between there. Now, the reality is that I think you can only watch putting on deck boards in a time lapse. It's the only feasible way to actually watch it without, dying of boredom. But it really does look cool and really pretty once you get done with everything. Next thing you'll see here coming up, I leave that little gap in the middle. I'm going to put a nice strip where they all meet up together, and it makes it look all framed in. I think it's a really cool looking deck. I'm pretty proud of it. So as I screw in those middle seams, you can kind of get an idea of the deck coming together. I know I did promise some welding in here, and I am much more of a carpenter than I am a welder, which isn't saying much for either, but the goal here is to take some 7x7 steel and put it over the true 6x6 posts. Then we have a really nice fit over top of there. So Metabo HPT, used to be Hitachi, has this adapter for battery power tools. So you can do an AC adapter with it too. Just makes it so you don't have to choose between the two necessarily. It's a little clunky and kind of awkward, but works well. And when you have a lot of metal to cut like this, the battery lasts a little longer. Now this is a lot of metal to cut through with a Sawzall, but a nice carbon tip blade does the job. I do have a whole video of me doing this and the whole process I went through, so if you're interested, I'll put a link in the description, and also I will leave a QR code at the end for those of you watching on TV. So there's at least the cleaned up version of the weld. Still need to sand it down and make it smooth, but should be good, at least for a post sleeve. All right, sleeve number 2. I learned before, I have to just do this. There we go. These are gonna be nice top posts. Let's go do some more. Number 3. There it is. Let's do another one. That's why you shouldn't weld in your flannel. Oh. Number 4. Oh. 4 down. So this is what it looks like inside with those little spacers, and those are each 3/16. And I'll show you sort of what that looks like. So normally, when I put this in here, this block of wood, it's true 6x6, and this is 7x7, so a little bit smaller on the inside for the metal. But what it does, if you can kind of see the gap of light in there, it makes it so that it doesn't slop around in there, gives it a nice even edge all the way around so that the water can drain around it too, and then has just enough slop so that it can still move and get nice and plumb and square. But then I can drill and put screws through and it locks it in place and still has a gap. So all the Trex or any brand that has a sleeve that goes over posts, they all have these little spacers in there, and that's the reason. So it doesn't get too bunched up on one side, and so the post can dry pretty well. Just figured I'd go through that and show you the reason for it. So I make no claims to be anything but a hobbyist welder. Once again, this is a what I'm doing channel, not a how-to channel. So if you get some ideas, that's great, but we're not learning things here in depth. As you can see, I'm kind of going down these posts and trying to string a bead together. If you know what you're doing, any tips would be appreciated. I'm going to have part 3 of this permit-free deck build series out here in the next week or 2. So join us as I weld up some of the railings, and hopefully we get some paint on there as well. After going from the YouTube consumer side of things to the YouTube creator side of things, let's just say I have a newfound appreciation for how much work it actually takes to make even these short little videos that come out on an almost weekly basis. So hopefully you got some value out of this video, even if it's just entertainment value. I'm going to keep doing them and keep trying to get better each week as I go. Like and subscribe if you enjoy the content and would like to see part 3 coming up. Thanks. 5.